Oh, hi everyone, and welcome back to the 48 Laws of Power Early Morning Edition discussion series. A book by Robert Greene. Where the fuck even are we? Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. That's a whole hell of a lot. Speaking of power, good morning, evening, afternoon, something, Melissa Jane? It's hard to tell what the Australians are at. Mommy Spice, good morning to ya. Kitty Ninja, good afternoon. What up, first shot? Fairly certain. I mean, we never do line up. We never do line up. Maddie, but it's good to see you. Thank you for coming. Hope you tap into. I mean, you probably don't need to tap into this one. Oh, sheesh. Glad I was effing off elsewhere for literally a minute and I was just about to scrap it and your notification appeared. We'll be here but exercising restraint in chat. You mean just relaxing. That's fine. Like, I don't even know about today's law because today's law is actually something that it was because of the surface to air missiles. They had surface to air missiles. Uh, they were going to get shot out of the sky. They couldn't fly in. We've been over this like at least a bajillion times. It was all about that. It was about that air defense. Ooh, ooh. That might have been too much just now. Yes, something like that. Anywho, like, I'm not sure about the law this particular instance because I'm not the surrendering type. Now I don't know if any of my friends in the audience are actually the surrendering type, the submissive lot. Some of you might be. I would imagine most of you aren't. But I don't know the nature of how this law actually gets to be a thing. I mean, I know what you meant, but you're just chilling, relaxing, and yeah, Melissa Jane, the famous Melissa Jane now has grown well out of control. And then there's Maddie. He's also a person. We'll give him that credit. I love Maddie. Yeah, Melissa Jane's getting more and more famous by the day. She's famous by comparison to me and growing more and more famous than I ever will by the day. Uh I'm going by what vanity numbers. I'm going by vanity numbers, Melissa Jane. Like you have subscribers and monetization and I don't, and I've been doing this longer than you. Most of my history has been erased, but I have been doing this longer than you. You are very famous. Big time. Big timer. Uh, do I have a mod even in the chat right now? I don't even think any. Cat Ninja, can you give Melissa Jane's link if you're still here? I don't even know. I'm fairly certain. Yeah, no, you won't. But if Cat Ninja's still here and Cat Ninja can post Melissa Jane's fucking link, that would be super awesome. I mean, I could hold on. Oh, I will love that forever. Hold on. Give me a second. I gotta open the link. You want to see if how famous my friends are? Big timers as they be. Man, I'm gonna get into this episode eventually today. I promise. But before I do, go get into Melissa Jane's shorts. Right there. Oh, Cat Ninja coming through just literally in time. I mean, there's no real like discrepancy. Like, how is she famous and you're not, even though you've been doing this longer? Let's just BS. I mean, Judge Maddie wants to just BS and skip the Law 22. I have 48 laws to get through, Matthew. Shit show. I know this amazing guy who hosts this amazing radio show might have mentioned it. I remember back when I promoted you, Melissa Jane, and then you just blew up to epic proportions, and I'm like, oh well, you know, she's a right social girl with a amazing personality, a interesting set of like just the content. Like, I mean, you were bound to be popular. Maddie, I'm afraid I can't skip the chapter because I have to get this shit done. Uh, your skills are actually have chocolate in your shorts, but we will we will not discuss that at this moment. We have things to do. Well, I'm going to break it to you this way for a shot because we are just now currently not getting into the law and just off on the bullshit trail. The cat lives in the UK and it's never hot there. So, cat is cool. Full time. Full time. Yeah, I know, Maddie. But I'm actually like trying to talk myself out of agreeing with you, sir. So this is why I want to. Yeah, I mean, she's the last. You treat her with respect. I kill you otherwise. No, I'm just kidding. Allegedly. Allegedly. Anyway, moving on. Shit. See, I was really excited about Law 22 because this says use the surrender tactic to transform weakness into power. And I'm like, just surface level. How the fuck do you do that? Because I've never done this. And then I realized the more and more I thought about it, I have acquiesced. I have worked for people before. Like, I have learned how to use a situation where you don't have any power to make power. And I was like, does that apply to this scenario? Because never outshine the master and you surrender. I feel like these are two different. Yeah, I feel like these are two different concepts, and I don't know if they're even relatable. So I don't know exactly what the hell this is supposed to be getting into. But I'm very, very interested because I'm not one to surrender by my nature or even when pressed to my limits. I just don't have it in me. So let's figure out what the fuck Mr. Greene is trying to get at. Judgment. When you are weaker, never fight for honor's sake. Choose surrender instead. Now, I didn't even get through the first sentence of this judgment, and I am reminded of a quote in a fiction book that actually rung super true into my head, and it was that honor is a fool's prize, and what use is glory to the dead? And that really did that just hit me right now. Like I'm in the moment. Surrender gives you time to recover, time to torment and irritate your conqueror, time to wait for his power to wane. I mean, as long as he doesn't execute you, yeah. Do not give him the satisfaction of fighting and defeating you. Surrender first. I mean, I guess that gives you a better chance of like surviving than losing outright in a fight. By turning the other cheek, you infuriate and unsettle him. Make surrender a tool of power. I don't know exactly how often you could actually make this a tool of power. This is going to be something I question the whole way through. So if anybody here knows how to submit and use it to their advantage, I'm not speaking to anyone in particular. Just like if you have this ability, like help explain this to me. Transgression of the law. The island of Melos is strategically situated in the heart of the Mediterranean. In classical times, the city of Athens dominated the sea and coastal areas around Greece. But Sparta and the Peloponnese had been Melos's original colonizers. So Sparta did this island. During the Peloponnesian War, then, the Melians refused to ally themselves with Athens and remained loyal to Mother Sparta. Makes sense. That's where they came from. In 416 BC, the Athenians sent an expedition against Melos. Before launching an all-out attack, however, they dispatched a delegation to persuade the Melians to surrender and become an ally rather than suffer devastation and defeat. Okay, so sounds like uh before we have to waste valuable resources on destroying you, we will offer you the olive branch. Now, mind you, this is the transgression of the law, and being a transgression of the law, like, oh man, when did I turn on Telemundo? Uh, English only in the chat or I ban you. How about that? That goes for you first, One Shot and Go Hagen and Cat Ninja, who are all talking Mexican. Like I can even follow that at the moment. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna ban you for talking Spanish in the chat, but I also am not greeting you first thing in the morning doing Spanish. Squabob, good to see you, Spartacus. Did you by chance manage to originally colonize the island of Milos? Uh, you will have to ask Cat Ninja. Okay, there's a punch in here called the chestnut and the fig tree, and I actually did read the damn punch ins to see if they were actually uh legibly literate. This one is, and I actually liked it, so this one's gonna be fun for me to try to read, so bear with me. A man who had climbed upon a certain fig tree was bending the boughs toward him and plucked the ripe fruit, which he then put into his mouth to destroy and gnaw with his hard teeth. The chestnut, seeing this, tossed its long branches and with tumultuous rustle exclaimed, "O fig, how much less protected by nature you are than I! See how my sweet offspring are set in close array, first clothed in soft wrappers over which is the hard but softly lined husk. And not content with this much care, nature has also given us these sharp and close set spines so that the hand of man cannot hurt us." Then the fig began to laugh. And after the laughter it said, "You know well that man is of such ingenuity that he will bereave even you of your children. But in your case he will do it by means of rods and stones. And when they are felled, he will trample them with his feet or hit them with stones, so that your offspring will emerge from their armor crushed and maimed, while I am touched carefully by his hands, and never like you with roughness. Leonardo da Vinci." And I thought that was really funny because, oh, I have been over this. I have been over this. We don't do surrender monkey around here, sir. No offense to yous. Don't get hit by, I mean, everybody started talking Spanish all at once. Heidi, I don't know what to do about that. I just surrender. I let the chat do what it does. I give up. Said you go, hey, it just won't stop with me. I mean, this Friday morning, he's on like communist time, so Cabo 40 steady time specifically. But no, what we learned about the fig and the chestnut is the predator, which is man, got them both. I mean, fruit should not talk to each other for one thing. Fruits and nuts should not be communicating in this manner. But put that aside, Da Vinci taught us that like we got them both, but like they got to go to a peaceful, easy end, while the chestnut, in its infinite armor and spines, ended up being crushed and destroyed in the long run. Like, what is actually worse when the fate is demise one way or the other? Like, one might say it be gentler if you can't fight back, and they fought back all they could. But if you can't fight back to a significant degree, like maybe it's just better to just go the soft route. Who knows? Anyway, we left off with the millions, and we're going back to them now. "You know as well as we do," the delegate said, "that the standard of justice depends on the equality of power to compel." The equality of power to compel, like, uh, and that in fact the strong do what they have the power to do, and the weak accept what they have to accept. So this is basically the argument of might makes right. That is what the Athenians are arguing with the Melians when they sent their delegates. Might makes right, like, and the Melians are basically like, yeah, go fuck yourself, like Elon Musk to the advertisers at the current moment in current year. Okay, well, this is gonna go fun. When the Melians responded that this denied the notion of fair play, the Athenians said that those in power determined what was fair and what was not. Oh, does this sound familiar? Does anyone know where we have heard this recently? I will wait. Because this actually sounds like exactly where I sit right now with my current regime and their power structure of might makes right. The Melians argued that this authority belonged to the gods, not to mortals. And in current day, we might argue that our rights were derived from God, not from men. So there might be a fair but loose translation here. Our opinion of the gods and our knowledge of men, replied a member of the Athenian delegation, lead us to conclude that it is a general and necessary law of nature to rule whatever one can. That's a problematic situation there. The Melians would not budge. Sparta, they insisted, would come to their defense. The Athenians countered that the Spartans were a conservative, practical people and would not help Milos because they had nothing to gain and a lot to lose by doing so. Finally, the Melians began to talk of honor and the principle of resisting brute force. You are already transgressing two or three of the previously stated laws by doing this general behavior of appealing to duty, honor, and like past uh, obligations. What you need to appeal to in these regards of power is, in fact, something very pragmatic and practical today. And if you actually have nothing to offer, you're actually falling into a very bad spot. We went over this not that long ago. Finally, uh, do not be led astray by a false sense of honor, said the Athenians. Honor often brings men to ruin when they are faced with an obvious danger that somehow affects their pride. Ooh, we're touching upon pride now because this actually screws a lot of people over. There is nothing disgraceful in giving way to the greatest city in Hellas when she is offering you such reasonable terms. The debate ended. The Melians discussed the issue amongst themselves and decided to trust in the aid of the Spartans, the will of the gods, and the righteousness of their cause. They politely declined the Athenians' offer. Oh, I don't think this is actually going to go well for them. Shilomania, you are just in time to see the Melians be destroyed by the Athenians because they declined their offer and put their faith in everything that was not on their side. A few days later, the Athenians invaded Milos. The Melians fought nobly even without the Spartans, who did not come to their rescue. It took several attempts before the Athenians could surround and besiege their main city, but the millions finally surrendered. The Athenians wasted no time. They put to death all the men of military age that they could capture. They sold the women and children as words we are not even going to discuss on YouTube, and they repopulated the island with their own colonists. Only a handful of millions survived. Oh, shit. Yep. I mean, it turns out, Go Hagen, my guy, it turns out that historically speaking, God tends to be on the side of the more violent and ruthless and powerful population. Generally, the more dangerous lot is who God tends to line up with. Historically, when it comes to wars, at least what we know of wars. I mean, it was God's plan, wasn't it? Well, the godless tend to destroy the godly. Or, in the case of the Crusades, vice versa. I mean, it depends on who you see God as, because I'm sure Genghis Khan had a god when he ruled an empire that conquered half a continent. I'm sure the Romans had several gods actually when they conquered almost an entire continent. Everybody has a god and conquers continents and all that shit, you know. Cheers. Uh, I'm sure that's exactly what he meant to say, and it was just a typo. I'm sure he meant to say goddess Charlemagne. Interpretation. The Athenians were one of the most eminently practical people in history, and they made the most practical argument they could with the millions. When you are weaker, there is nothing to be gained by fighting a useless fight. Even Sun Tzu wrote, like, several thousand years before this even happened, that do not engage an opponent when they're stronger and more capable. Like, honor is of no use to the dead. No one comes to help the weak. By doing so, they would only put themselves in jeopardy. So, this whole nonsense of like standing up to the bully, uh, we'll see how that works out. The weak are alone and must submit. We'll see how that works out too. Fighting gives you nothing to gain but martyrdom, and in the process, a lot of people who do not believe in your cause will die if you make them fight for you, or you put them in a position where they have to fight for you. Yeah, they're gonna die. Weakness is no sin, and can even become a strength and virtue if you learn how to play it right. Had the Melians surrendered in the first place, they would have been able to sabotage the Athenians in subtle ways, or might have gotten what they could have out of the alliance and then left it when the Athenians themselves were weakened, as in fact happened several years later. Oh, see, in nature, what happens to injured animals? Scavengers usually, like predators, once they wound an animal, they don't let it live. And if an animal is found to be wounded, scavengers usually find it before a predator does, but something's going to get it. Like it doesn't have anything to care for it. It doesn't have any way of regrouping. It's going to be destroyed. I mean, what happens to all animals? I mean, the the wages of sin is death, and the wages of life is also death. Whether you're an animal and of a righteous nature or not, like uh, all roads lead to death. Some roads are longer than others. What the true nature of death and the afterlife is, everyone has to find out on their own time. Fortunes change and the mighty are often brought down. There we go. What goes up must come down. Surrender conceals great power. Lulling the enemy into complacency, it gives you time to recoup, time to undermine, time for revenge. Never sacrifice that time in exchange for honor in a battle that you cannot win. I mean, what use is a noble death to the dead when life may be so much more fruitful? Something up, Cat Ninja? What do you give up on? I haven't even seen you post in the last 64 bajillion minutes since you said hi to Shalomania like a 64 bajillion minutes ago. So yeah, I agree with first one shot. Don't give up. Well, we're not doing Asian food today, so no nudes. Oh, you surrender. But what? Why do you surrender? Like, I'm confused. Have you been fighting? Have you been losing honor in a battle you cannot win? Okay, I haven't read this one yet, so this will be fun. Voltaire was living in exile in London at a time when anti-French sentiment, was at its highest. One day, walking through the streets, he found himself surrounded by an angry crowd. Hang him! Hang the Frenchman! Oh dear God, this sounds like one of them type of mobs that we don't talk about on YouTube. They yelled. I disavow, just for the record. Voltaire calmly addressed the mob with the following words: Men of England, you wish to kill me because I am a Frenchman. It seems like a reasonable position to take. Am I not punished enough in not being born an Englishman? Yes. Yes, you are. You have to be French for the rest of your life. The crowd cheered his thoughtful words and escorted him safely back to his lodgings. And there you shall remain, French for the rest of your existence. And that's the bottom line because the English folk said so. The Little Brown Book of Anecdotes, Clifton Fetterman, 1985. Oh, shit. Weak people never give way when they ought to. Cardinal de Retz, 1613 to 1679. Like, see, we live in an actual experiment right now where we are actually trying to get weak people to give way in mass, like in such a mass formation psychosis as never before. Certain things that you have seen lately in history like should give you pause as to be concerned about how weak people actually are around you and how quickly they will surrender and collapse and think of it as strength, as legitimate strength. We're gonna figure out like how you can use this right now to actually turn your weak positioning into strength. We have the observance of the law. Oh boy, this is already starting off really good. Sometime in the 1920s, the German writer Bertolt Brecht became a convert to the cause of communism. Okay, so how many of y'all know me? And how many of y'all know how I feel about communism and the fucking communists? If you can tell me in 3 words how I feel about communism, I don't know. There might be a gold star. I don't know if I have any prizes. Let me check and see. I don't. Fuck you, Cat Ninja. I hope you die in a fire. Oh no, wait. These are all 3-letter statements, but the correct actual term is heck off commie, and that's how I feel about actual commies. Like I would say fuck off commie, however, they're too bony and like malnourished to fuck anything. So like I wouldn't fuck commies. I don't suggest you fuck commies. I don't suggest commies fuck commies. Like they're too bony and malnourished. They should just heck off. Yeah. Heck off commie. There we go. Shiloh Mania for the dubs. But yeah, let's continue because let's see what the Germans and communisms want to go in the 1920s, mind you. From then on, his plays, essays, and poems reflected his revolutionary fervor, and he generally tried to make his ideological statements as clear as possible. Sound familiar, anybody? When Tiny Mustache Man, who you can't mention on YouTube, came to power in Germany, y'all know who this Tiny Mustache Man is, right? Like, I can't even mention his name because I might get this video like struck or demonetized at some point. Brecht and his commie shitwit colleagues, I don't even give a fuck at this point. I'm not even monetized. Like when Hitler came to power, Brechton's commie colleague Shitwitz became marked men. Oh, Hitler came after the commies. Like, I thought we were friends. It turns out they're not. Could you hit the like button? Because I'm about to be at least suppressed. I said all the words. He had many friends in the United States. Americans who sympathized with his beliefs. Oh, wait. Brecht, yeah. Okay, the commies. Goddamn commies ruined everything. As well as fellow German intellectuals who had fled Hitler. In 1941, accordingly, Brecht emigrated to the United States. Like, he fled and chose to settle in Los Angeles, Californistan, where he hoped to make a living in the film business. Piss off. Over the next few years, Brecht wrote screenplays with a pointedly anti-capitalist slant. Oh, you scumbag. He had little success in Hollywood. Okay, thank God. So in 1947, the war having ended, he decided to return to Europe. Okay, so he fled here for the duration of the war, tried to make commie bullshit in my country, which I love, and failed. At least somebody did, because the people who are doing it now are not failing anymore. So he goes back to Europe. That same year, however, the U.S. Congress's House Un-American Activities Committee. Oh, this was McCarthyism. Began its investigation into supposed communist infiltration in Hollywood. It began to gather information on Brecht, who had so openly espoused Marxism, and on September 19th, 1947, now this was before McCarthyism, never mind, way before. Only a month before he had planned to leave the United States, he received a subpoena to appear before the committee. In addition to Brecht, a number of other writers, producers, and directors were summoned to appear as well, and this group came to be known as the Hollywood 19. Hold on, y'all. Does anybody here know about the Hollywood 19? I have no clue about this. Like, I wasn't even around in the late 40s. I wasn't even around till the mid 80s. But I've never heard anything about the Hollywood 19. Should I look into the Hollywood 19 further for like persecution to communism? Just as an aside, I feel like this is something that could actually happen. That's why I'm asking. I read this. You studied film. Should I look into this? Like, is this worth knowing for me? Because I'm not sure how relevant it is to the rest of the law here, but it sounds like it might be an interesting story. Oh, I actually like that. Let's continue then. Uh, Before going to Washington, the Hollywood 19 met to decide on a plan of action. Their approach would be confrontational. Instead of answering questions about their membership or lack of it in the Communist Party, they would read prepared statements that would challenge the authority of the committee and argue that its activities were unconstitutional. And by unconstitutional, we will go ahead and declare them unconstitutional under the First Amendment, which defends everyone's right to freedom of speech. Right? Which is why we need to talk about the curtailing of the First Amendment, in my opinion. But there are certain things you shouldn't be allowed to espouse, like the suppression of other people's speech, which is what the communists do. Okay, I am missing some shit. Okay, nothing of relevance. Even if this strategy meant imprisonment, it would gain publicity for their cause because it is a constitutional challenge on the First Amendment. Brecht disagreed. What good was it, he asked, to play the martyr and gain a little public sympathy if in the process they lost the ability to stage their plays and sell their scripts for years to come? My people who were involved in the J6 event, take note if you're not in jail already. He felt certain that they were all more intelligent than the members of the committee. Why lower themselves to the level of their opponents by arguing with them? Why not outfox the committee by appearing to surrender to it while subtly mocking it? The Hollywood 19 listened to Brett politely, but decided to stick to their plan, leaving Brett to go his own way. He's a man going his own way. I admire his tenacity and courage. We will see how this works out. Regular dumb old beard. My bearded associates, trust me, all beards are majestic and noble, un, unless they are the scraggliest of scraggly beards, and there are very few that I can note. Even my man, Mr. Malloy, went from growing like a nothing beard to some kind of beard. It only took him 70 years, but it's still a beard. The committee finally summoned Brecht on October 30th. They expected him to do what others among the Hollywood 19 who had testified before him had done: argue, refuse to answer questions, challenge the committee's right to hold its hearing, even yell and hurl insults. Much to their surprise, however, Brecht was the very picture of congeniality. He wore a suit, something he rarely did, smoked a cigar. He had heard that the committee chairman was a passionate cigar smoker, answered their questions politely, and generally deferred to their authority. So, in other words, he went snitch. He went full up. Rat-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Well, that's lovely. Good on him, right? Full surrender. Unlike the other witnesses, Brecht answered the question of whether he belonged to the Communist Party. He was not a member, he said, which happened to be the truth. One committee member asked him, "Is it true you have written a number of revolutionary plays?" Brecht had written many plays with the overt communist messages, but he responded, I have written a number of poems and songs and plays in the fight against Hitler, and, of course, they can be considered, therefore, as revolutionary, because I, of course, was for the overthrow of that government. This statement went unchallenged. Oh, you sly devil dog. You see what he did there? He took everything he did long after Hitler was all gone. He was in the U.S. and he went ahead and associated all of that shit with the shit he did before, thus lumping it in something you can't argue with, which is a very famous communist tactic, is to take a thing like, let's say for example, something that you really can't argue with today, like Black Lives Matter, and then taking that premise and using it to do uh, all the things that we've seen done in that name. You take something you can't argue with and you hide all your ill intent inside it. Communism 101. So problematic. Brecht's English was more than adequate, but he used an interpreter throughout his testimony, a tactic that allowed him to play subtle games with language. Ooh. When committee members found communist leanings in lines from English editions of his poems, he would repeat the lines in German for the interpreter, who would then retranslate them, and somehow they would come out innocuous because he just lied. At one point, a committee member read one of Brecht's revolutionary poems out loud in English and asked him if he had written it. No, he responded. I wrote a German poem which is very different from this. I, I like your style, bro. The author's elusive answers baffled the committee members, but his politeness and the way he yielded to their authority made it impossible for them to get angry with him. So he just kept deflecting and kissing their ass. This sounds like every member of Congress I've seen since I became old enough to become concerned about who was in my Congress. I'm just saying, like, if you look at any congressional hearing or Senate hearing and anyone who ever goes before, this is what they do. They deflect and they ass kiss. Like, this is like propaganda 101. I mean, it's gaslighting. It's deflection. It's all the things to avoid you taking responsibility for your own shit. It's a whole fucking problem, y'all. And maybe, just maybe, we should do something about it. They should have a propaganda. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. After only an hour of questioning, the committee members had had enough. Thank you very much, said the chairman. You are a good example to the other witnesses. Not only did they free him, they offered to help him if he had any trouble with immigration officials who might detain him for their own reasons. The following day, Brecht left the United States, never to return. Okay, well, that's the smartest thing I've seen him do all day. And very much well he should, because he just realized that he oofed the shit out of them, and he was 100% guilty of everything they were accusing him of. But let's look into the interpretation and see what Mr. Greene has to say. Interpretation. The Hollywood 19's confrontational approach won them a lot of sympathy, and years later they gained a kind of vindication in public opinion. But they were also blacklisted and lost valuable years of profitable working time. Brecht, on the other hand, expressed his disgust at the committee more indirectly, and it was not that he had changed his beliefs or compromised his values. Instead, during his short testimony, he kept the upper hand by appearing to yield while all the time running circles around the committee with vague responses. Okay, y'all, if I have a real significant problem with you, I'm probably going to tell you one of two things. Fuck you, you're wrong like 1,000%. Or I'm not mad at what you said, I'm just disappointed. Something in that regard. And one of these things is going to give me a lot more leverage in the future to have an opinion about what you've done and what you're going to do next than the other. So this is why people don't go with the fuck you, you're disgusting, and they go with the not mad, just disappointed route. I just want that to be known because that's kind of what's happening here. And this guy was like, yes, uh, I do things and stuff. Ugh. Instead, during his short testimony, he kept the upper hand by appearing to yield while all the time running circles around the committee with vague responses, outright lies that went unchallenged because they were wrapped in enigmas and word games. That's just how communism do. In the end, he kept the freedom to continue his revolutionary writing as opposed to suffering imprisonment or detainment in the United States. Even while subtly mocking the committee and its authority with his pseudo obedience. Keep in mind the following. People trying to make a show of their authority are easily deceived by the surrender tactic. Your outward sign of submission makes them feel important. Satisfied that you respect them, they become easier targets for a later counterattack. Or for the kind of indirect ridicule used by Brecht. Measuring your power over time, never sacrifice long-term maneuverability for the short-lived glories of martyrdom, because when you murder yourself, you lose all maneuverability. I need context. And I will wait for the context if I indeed am missing it, but holy son of a bitch. That's how the internet works, huh? When the great lord passes, the wise peasant bows deeply and silently farts. Ethiopian proverb. Uh, just the Ethiopians for coming forward with a proverb that makes fun of everything. Okay, so where were we? Have we figured out how to humble ourselves in the face of like supreme authority and to low key like I don't know diss them on Twitter and like I don't know fuck Joe Biden something of that nature. Like I want to relate this as something useful to y'all. Duff's other response to people he be disagreeing with. Which, what about go beating an entire bag of dicks? I mean, sometimes I say that, which is why I have a problem with this law because uh, rather than be like, okay, well, you might be right, it's more like, how about you go fuck yourself? It's a whole problem for me. How do you eat a bag of dicks? You like check them off one at a time. Oh no, you eat them. You eat them like cotton candy. You consume them all the way into your gullet, and you never let them go. That being said, and completely unrelated, good. I'm gonna like it's probably not Grand Risings. It's probably like Happy Tea Time, Good Afternoon, or Good Morning, Lady Autumn Sky to you. Good to see you. Okay, so I'm still very not much of the surrendering mind. So let's find out the keys to power here because I need this wisdom reinforced in my head. What gets us into trouble in the realm of power is often our own overreaction to the moves of our enemies and rivals. That overreaction creates problems we would have avoided had we been more reasonable. And this is the problem. People react emotionally and don't react reasonably. It also has an endless rebound effect, for the enemy then overreacts as well, much as the Athenians did to the Melians. Ooh, ooh, that was a war of aggression that didn't need to happen. It is always our first instinct to react. Human nature. To meet aggression with some other kind of aggression that is defensive behavior. But the next time someone pushes you and you find yourself starting to react, try this. Do not resist or fight back, but yield, turn the other cheek, bend. Other words, be formless. Be as Jesus would be. You will find that this often neutralizes their behavior. I mean, this doesn't apply to those who are being affronted by those weaker than them. This applies to those being affronted by those much stronger than them. I mean, use their emotions to delay them, to stay their anger, if you will, and use manipulation to defeat them. Logic and reasoning may not be the tool necessary. Like if you're dealing with a plumb brute, some other flattery will be necessary. It won't be logic and reasoning that's going to win you out. In fact, very often in this scenario, will it be logic and reasoning that will win you out? Use your logic and reasoning to discover what is going to be their flattery and then push their emotional buttons to get you out. That's the that's the whole point here is buy yourself some time by not fighting a war you can't win. That is the whole fucking point of this whole chapter in law. You will find this often neutralizes their behavior. They expected, even wanted you to react with force, and so they are caught off guard and confounded by your lack of resistance. By yielding, you in fact control the situation because your surrender is part of a larger plan to lull them into believing they have defeated you. You are buying yourself time to regroup and reestablish. Absolutely. If you know what the emotional response will be, you can play them like a puppet. But if you don't know what the emotional response will be, it is best to stay their anger and pluck at them until you can find the emotional response you're looking for. Anytime you can buy yourself where they have not destroyed you becomes beneficial to you. This is the essence of the surrender tactic. Inwardly, you stay firm, but outwardly, you bend. Deprived of a reason to get angry, your opponents will often be bewildered instead, and they are unlikely to react with more violence, which would demand a reaction from you. Instead, you are allowed the time and space to plot the counter moves that will bring them down. So, yes, you're buying yourself time. In the battle of the intelligent against the brutal and the aggressive, the surrender tactic is the supreme weapon. So if you don't have power on your side, you have cunning and intellect, you are best to buy yourself some time till you are in a position of power. It does require self control. Those who genuinely surrender give up their freedom, which is a bitch, and may be crushed by the humiliation of their defeat. You have to remember that you only appear to surrender, like the animal that plays dead to save its hide. There you go. Like, that's a key. Because you don't actually give up, you feign giving up. We have seen that it can be better to surrender than to fight. Faced with a more powerful opponent and a sure defeat, it is often also better to surrender than to run away. Running away may save you for the time being, but the aggressor will eventually catch up with you. If you surrender instead, you have an opportunity to coil around your enemy and strike with your fangs from close up. So there are occasions where, like, even fleeing and living to fight another day are not beneficial, but it is best to just, like, let yourself be drawn in closer to your enemy, to those who would seek to destroy you, and lull them into a false sense of victory. All the while biding time and making preparations for something greater. In 473 BC, in ancient China, King Gujan of Yu suffered a horrible defeat from the ruler of Wu in the Battle of Fujiao. Gujan wanted to flee, but he had an advisor who told him to surrender and to place himself in the service of the ruler of Wu, from which position he could study the man and plot his revenge. Deciding to follow this advice, Gujan gave the ruler all of his riches and went to work in his conqueror's stables as the lowest servant. Oh my goodness. For 3 years he humbled himself before the ruler, who then, finally satisfied of his loyalty, allowed him to return home. Oh, big mistake. Inwardly, however, Gurjan had spent those 3 years gathering information and plotting revenge. When a terrible drought struck Wu and the kingdom was weakened by inner turmoil, he raised an army, invaded, and won with ease. That is the power behind surrender. It gives you the time and flexibility to plot a devastating counterblow. Had Gurjan run away, he would have lost this chance. That's what I've been getting at. It's the best when they think they've won, but they are actually doing exactly what you wanted them to do. I mean, they never do exactly what you want them to do, but as long as you have the opportunity to continue to observe them, you can kind of, like, herd them the direction you would like them to go. And you can kind of force them into doing something like you'd want them to do. It's very rare that you get that perfect opportunity where they do exactly what you want them to do, but it's way better than being dead because you fought and got destroyed, which I think is the whole point of this, is just don't fight when you're going to be destroyed. There are so many possibilities for someone who's still alive. There are very, very, very limited possibilities for someone who is dead. When foreign trade began to threaten Japanese independence in the mid-19th century, the Japanese debated how to defeat the foreigners. One minister, Hotta Masayoshi, wrote a memorandum in 1857 that influenced Japanese policy for years to come. I am therefore convinced that our policy should be to conclude friendly alliances, to send ships to foreign countries everywhere and conduct trade, to copy the foreigners where they are at their best, and so repair our own shortcomings. This is basically what China is doing right now. Cheers. Shit. Coming back. I mean, this is only my fourth since we started streaming, so fuck it. Right? Okay, so Japan's basically like, let's steal all our opponents' shit. to foster our national strength and complete our armaments, and so gradually subject the foreigners to our influence until, in the end, all the countries of the world know the blessings of perfect tranquility, and our hegemony is acknowledged throughout the globe. This is a brilliant application of the law. Wait, what? You surrender to gain access to your enemy. Learn his ways. Insinuate. So they're saying we're not going to fight nobody no more. We're just going to trade with everybody. That's what they said in the 1800s. Before, mind you, uh, what was the Mamashito? Like, I can't remember the name of the guy who was running Japan during the time of the tiny. It was Tiny Mustache Man, Mussolini, and I think it was Mamashito or Mama. I don't know. Yokosito. I'm not great on my Japanese point of history because I never knew anybody that was involved. All my W2 buffs, do you want to tell me who was running Japan during the time of World War II? I'll be better off for it. But I figure out now exactly what they mean by this. Uh, learn his ways. Insinuate yourself with him slowly. Outwardly conform to his customs, but inwardly maintain your own culture. Be a Jew, is what they're saying. Eventually, you will emerge victorious, for while he considers you weak and inferior and takes no precautions against you, you are using the time to catch up and surpass him. This soft, permeable form of invasion is often the best, like taking in refugees. Was it Hiato? I mean, I believe you more so than I would believe myself at this point. This is basically what brought down the Romans, absorbing their enemies. Well, the thing that brought down the Romans, go Hagen, and let's not. Uh, they were for the longest time integrating everybody into Roman civilization that they brought in. Oh, Hirohoto? Thank you, Cat Ninja. That is correct now that I see it. But anyway, back to the Romans. They were bringing in everybody, and they were assimilating them correctly. Like they were making them Roman. They stretched themselves too far, too thin, too fast, and they stopped assimilating people. And then they basically absorbed the Gauls, but they didn't assimilate them, and they let them have free reign. And the Gauls ended up from within sacking and destroying Rome. And they basically became victims of their own success. And it's kind of like America. Back when America first started, America assimilated everybody that came to America. If you wanted to come to America, you learned the American dialect of English, you conformed to our customs and whatnot, and you assimilated. And that was fine. And it worked. But we got away from that. And just like Rome, when they stopped assimilating people that they absorbed that hate them from within, and stop being like discerning and discreet about who they actually assimilated into their culture, well, you didn't learn from history. I'm not going to say you're doomed to repeat it, but you are. Fuck off. Okay, where were we? Okay. The soft preamble form of invasion is often the best, for the enemy has nothing to react against, prepare for, or resist. And had Japan resisted Western influence by force, it might well have suffered a devastating invasion that would have permanently altered its culture. Surrender can also offer a way of mocking your enemies, of turning their power against them as it did for Brecht. Milan Kundera's novel The Joke, based on the author's experiences in a penal camp in Czechoslovakia, tells the story of how the prison guards organized a relay race, guards against prisoners. For the guards, this was a chance to show off their physical superiority. The prisoners knew they were expected to lose, so they went out of their way to oblige, miming exaggerated exertion while barely moving, running a few yards and collapsing, limping, jogging ever so slowly while the guards raced ahead at full speed. Both by joining the race and by losing it, they had obliged the guards obediently, but their over-obedience had mocked the event to the point of ruining it. Over-obedience, surrender, was here a way to demonstrate superiority in a reverse manner. Resistance would have engaged the prisoners in the cycle of violence, lowering them to the guards' level. Over-obeying the guards, however, made them ridiculous, yet they could not rightly punish the prisoners who had only done what they asked. So they were basically just like, we're not going to comply and we're just going to like fuck off and make a mockery of you in your little competition that you basically like, yeah, oh, you wanted to show off your prowess with your little uh, prisoner Olympics? Go fuck yourself. How about that? And that is exactly what the prisoners here said. Is just go fuck yourself. We're not gonna do it. Kudos to them. Straight up. Straight up. Power is always in flux. Since the game is by nature fluid and an arena of constant struggle, those with power almost always find themselves eventually on the downward swing. What goes up must come down, baby. If you find yourself temporarily weakened, the surrender tactic is perfect for raising yourself up again. It disguises your ambition. It teaches you patience and self control, key skills in the game, and it puts you in the best possible position for taking advantage of your oppressor's sudden slide. If you run away or fight back, in the long run, you cannot win. If you surrender, you will almost always emerge victorious. Uh, I'm glad I've never been put in a position to actually have to surrender because I feel like I might be able to. based on my understanding of how this works. However, like my pride, my foolishness, my stubbornness, like I feel like I might end up getting myself destroyed out of hand. Oh, hello, small mouse, and welcome to the party. Uh, Law 22 is running a little longer than I expected. I've got a lot more to say about this than I would have expected, considering I'm not one likely to surrender to shit. And now it's like, oh man, I'm learning with you guys. Image: an oak tree. The oak that resists the wind loses its branches one by one, and with nothing left to protect it, the trunk finally snaps. The oak that bends lives longer, its trunk growing wider, its roots deeper and more tenacious. Authority. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye, and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil, but whoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at law, and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him too. Jesus Christ in Matthew 5, verses 38 to 41. I like the fact that that was the authority on that one. Don't don't resist. Don't fight back. Like, I mean, most of the time people are not going to try to impose their will on you if you're stronger than them anyway. Bijou, good morning to you too. I mean, I know it's not morning, but welcome to the fucking party. Like before 4 p.m. Do you two just hang out all night? Like, man, we are almost to the end. So it is good that the rest of the Outsiders Knitting Club showed up right before the end of the reversal. I've had a lot of fun with this particular law just because this is so foreign of a concept to me. It's just like I have to remind myself of just like how this is actually like a valuable concept. Because in the moment, I would probably never be a surrender. I would probably be one who gets destroyed. It's good to see you, Small Mouse, and Bijou. Glad you could come. Let's get into reversal, shall we, so we can wrap this up. The point of surrendering is to save your hide for a later date when you can reassert yourself. It is to buy yourself time, is what they're saying. It is precisely to avoid martyrdom that one surrenders, but there are times when the enemy will not relent, and martyrdom seems the only way out. Furthermore, if you are willing to die, others may gain power and inspiration from your example. Yet martyrdom, surrenderer's reversal, is a messy, inexact tactic and is as violent as the aggression it combats, like martyrdom. Like, you're literally dying for the cause. You don't necessarily need to be a martyr, in my opinion, but I don't know if this is going to cover that, so I'm going to just talk about it a little bit right now. Like, there are ways that you can flee and regroup and fight back. If you fight back when you're destined to be beat, you're only going to be beat. So, in that point, surrender definitely needs to stand. But m- martyrdom for a cause, like if you stand for a cause, I guess. For every famous martyr, there are thousands more who have inspired neither a religion nor a rebellion. So that martyrdom does sometimes grant a certain power. It does so unpredictably. Like, oh, never even mind that. Like, I had never even given the fact that, like, how many people have gone down for their causes recently? Like, let's look at the protesters from the J and the Six and see what they gave for their cause, like what they gained, what is their cause doing for them or for the cause? Absolute. Oh, oh wait, nothing. Oh, I didn't think so. More important, you will not be around to enjoy that power, such as it is. If you become a martyr for the cause, that's the end of your story. Period. Full stop. And there is finally something selfish and arrogant about martyrs, as if they felt their followers were less important than their own glory. When power deserts you, it is best to ignore this law's reversal. Leave martyrdom alone. The pendulum will swing back your way eventually, and you should stay alive to see it. So, if ever in any case that you need to fight or you need to compel someone or try to inspire someone to fight, inspire them to fight, not to die. And if they're willing to die, do attempt to curtail that death wish into a longevity that serves them much greater. That would be my regard in that. And this is what surrendering is all about. It's not about giving up. It's about buying yourself time to not be destroyed. And that being said, I really did want to make a comment about like the 48 laws of power and where we stand right now just as a society. So let me go ahead and drop this for a second and just like come back to y'all just one to one. Uh, we're upon hard times, y'all. Things are looking kind of crazy out there. I know that. You all know that. All y'all that are close to me know I can't shut up about it. So you should have this in the back of your head. But the 48 laws of power are maybe not super useful to you in your everyday life today. However, when shit gets really serious, like all of this shit here is going to be a whole fuckload more relevant when power becomes the tool by which you stay alive. And like Mousy says right now, groceries are looking crazy out there. It's it's gonna I mean, I hope you're right, but I would advise that you hope for the best but prepare for the worst. And by giving this type of information, this type of thought processing, I'm trying to help people like be prepared for a worst case scenario where they might need all this information. So Don't offhand disregard any of this. I think it's super important. Now so more than ever to be aware of all of these possibilities and potentialities because you never know how shit's gonna break. But that being said, that was Law 22. Law 23, Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And that being said, Bijou, are you still with us? I need to. I am paging Bijou in the chat if she's still with us. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer me openly. Should I tell these fine folks about what we discussed, or should I just leave that and let that go through? Never mind then. I'm just gonna let it go through. And if they come around, they come around. But anyway, thank you all for joining me for Law 22. I hope you all enjoyed this discussion and interpretation, and I will see you all on Monday for Law 23. If you are by chance in the comment section in the replay, leave your thoughts, leave your comments, leave your whatever you have to say about it. And we will see you all next time. Thank you all for coming, and Darth Hideous out.